Yeah, this guy looks awesome.
Oh, whoa.
The band reached out to me for a music video at the perfect time because I was working on a review of the SmallRig 450D light, and I wanted to shoot something cool that utilized all of that power. The band threw out the idea of playing off of the famous That 70s Show basement spin.
The government has a car that runs on water, man.
So with a 70s vibe in mind, I hopped on Shot Deck to find some inspiration. I started typing in some keywords, and it became very apparent that I was drawn to a very warm color palette. I got really inspired by these golden hour interiors, and I was pretty confident that we could recreate this look by putting our artificial lights outside the window and having it act as our setting sun. Now, the location had shades that were just solid, so they wouldn't really let through the hard light that I wanted. And if we had them up all the way, you would be able to clearly see the light and stand right outside the window. So I knew I wanted Venetian blinds, so one of the band members brought some from their apartment, and we did a little renovating. And with these Venetian blinds, we get our sun, but you can't see how. Now, the one problem with this is that the light is not warm, like our inspiration. This light is daylight balanced. It is not RGB or bicolor. It's daylight, as are all of my really bright lights. So going into it, I knew that this light would be daylight, and I planned to tackle this by using some color temperature tricks. So if I set my camera's white balance to 8,000, I'll do that right now, everything gets a lot warmer. And if I was to do this, I could avoid using gels, which can be problematic because as soon as you start layering gels in front of your light, you start losing a lot of output, and I wanted our sun to be bright. However, it was very overcast that day and was actually going to soon be snowing, so we had very little natural daylight to compete with, and our SmallRig light wasn't even close to full power. I feel like maybe instead of changing the Kelvin, we should just go daylight and put the gel on, because we have plenty of leeway with that light, right? It's only at 20% right now, so if we put the gel in front of it, we can still jack it up. All right, so here was my plan. We have that warm light flooding the space and supplying the vibe, but we do want our people to still look like people and their skin to look like skin, so I planned to use all of my smaller lights inside set to daylight to key them. So starting with our bass player who's sitting right in front of the window, we used a little LED panel set to daylight and a small softbox on the far side of his face. Can I have you look at Trent, like whatever your eye line was when you were playing? Yeah. We just need to get it like over here, I think, like pretty sidey. Okay. As we all know, the rule is to shoot shadow side. It creates the most dimension and just looks best. This is often referred to as a far side key, and it's just kind of the default for intelligent lighting placement. So we would never put the light on this side of his face, for instance. So the problem with that was actually getting the light physically on the other side of his face because he's right up against a wall, and getting it close enough to have the right amount of output without actually seeing the light in the shot. I'll pause here to thank Maddie for being my gaffer / grip on this shoot. She's a friend of mine who is much more talented with lighting than I am, and she had the idea to use my Cardellini clamp on a beam on the ceiling, attach it to a C-stand arm, and then boom in the light from above, so that we don't have to work around a light stand, which would be especially problematic when we do our That 70s Show spin. I'm always shocked at how low you can get with a microphone or a light if it's boomed from above. So that's basically the battle we're going to have with each one of these band members, trying to get a daylight source on the far side of their face with a decent level without seeing the light in frame. So that way we have skin-colored skin and a nice contrast ratio shot from the proper side. For the lead singer's angle, we used a aperture 120D hidden in the kitchen over there. And again, this follows the rule of shooting shadow side by putting his key on the opposite side of the camera. The drummer was the hardest one to light because he was kind of the farthest away from everyone else and farthest away from our window, and if we put a key light on him, it would just look very lit. So we started off by raising the ambience in his little section of the room with a 4-foot Amaran tube set to daylight. That's way too bright. Let's go down like a ton. And then when we were discussing options for his key light, we decided we could try utilizing that pendant light that was already in the space by just switching out that hot light for a Aperture B7C. Aperture's fake light bulb, so that we could dial in the desired brightness and color temperature. And I might do like 4200, something in between. Actual daylight looks not great. 32 looks too warm. Yeah, I think like a 40. 42 still feels like the right vibe. without being too far in either direction.
A short start, and I've been flipped over, mixed up and spread out. Ooh, I think you.
When we were filming, we were intending to cut between the wide-angle tripod stuff spinning around the room and my close-up coverage that I got handheld with my Helios lens, but when I started to piece together the edit, they just really clashed. The solution I came to was to lean into how different they looked and just put the shots in different universes. One in the sitcom universe on the TV, which we shot practically and I composited in After Effects, and then one being just the reality of the music video. And to contrast them even more, I went into the RAW tab and changed the color temperature on the spinning footage from 56 to 3200, which cooled it down, basically removing the gel we had in front of our small rig light, so that the TV footage looked less stylized and had more true-to-life colors. So in keeping with literally every shoot I've ever done, I came away with a bunch of stuff that I wish I did differently. Here's a quick list of my regrets. First, I wish we had a story. This video was just purely driven by the visuals and the vibe. It would have been great to have a story and a vibe. We were working on a tight timeline, and I'm glad I just got to make some cool visuals for this band to use, and I got to play with my lights. But next time we work together, we've already talked about this, we're gonna spend some more time in pre-production. Second, I wish I used more haze. I was a little trepidatious about making it too hazy, and with our eyes, it did look very hazy at points. In retrospect, I think what I was really afraid of was having inconsistent levels of haze, because I have done shoots before where there's a lot of haze in one shot and almost none in the next, and it's really jarring to cut between them, and I kind of took my foot off the gas a bit, but when editing the footage, it doesn't even look like a lot of the shots have haze at all, and we could have had even more of a 70s vibe. And lastly, and most importantly, I think I messed up the color temperature on the drummer. So I set that B7C aperture RGB light bulb to 4000 because my thought process was you see it in frame, so it cannot be daylight. We want him to have daylight on his face. I should go to this side. This is my key side. And we want it to be daylight or close to daylight. It can't just be like a wash of orange. So I decided to kind of compromise with the color temperature and go to 4000 or 42 or something around there. But what that really did in reality was just make the shot not match everyone else, because everyone else was a mixture of 3200 backlight and 5600 key light. What I should have done with my 2020 hindsight is taken that pendant light and physically swung it around to be, instead of his key light, be behind him on his shadow side. And that way I could set the light to 3200 on my phone and give him a warm backlight, which would match all of the other characters who have a warm backlight from our small rig light outside, and it would not be weird because it's motivated by that pendant light we see in frame. And then I would just have to come up with a new idea for his key light. And I'm not exactly sure how we would have keyed him if we took away that pendant light, but I'm confident we could have figured something out, and that pendant light would have looked awesome as a warm backlight instead of a mixed color temperature key. This shoot was super fun because I did a bunch of stuff wrong and I learned from it. I get to utilize the knowledge that I've accrued over the years and then make new mistakes and learn from those. It's a good example of why I love this craft. All right. See you later.
Hello, Wisconsin!